Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today, I'll be speaking with a woman who has lived through so many life experiences. She knows that she can empathize and guide almost any of her clients with their problems and dreams. She was a single mom for almost 20 years, bringing up her children and paying for them on her own, as well as being the it girl in her family. She's a passionate supporter of women entrepreneurs and started a community called The Collective over 15 years ago. It is now expanded to include couples who are co-founders. Today, I'm joined by Libby Wildman, who's head of wealth advisory at Davis Ray. They're a boutique fiduciary investment counsel firm. Libby's here to tell us that wealth is a symbiotic circle of life perspectives. Welcome, Libby. Thank you so much for being on Empowered.
Yeah, I'm feeling empowered listening to you, Elizabeth.
Excellent. So let's go back. In your 40s, you were on a hospital foundation board. You were running half marathons, having a personal trainer at your house at 5 o'clock in the morning. You were a highly sought after speaker, hugely successful in the insurance business. And then you found out that you had acute bilateral pulmonary emboli. And 2 years later, breast cancer. So you were depleted and you needed to make important changes in your life. What changes did you make?
Yeah, your 40s are quite an incredible decade as a woman, I find. And at that point, I had gone through a second divorce as well. And I think, we all have things that happen to us in our childhood. I am certainly not unique. And those things tend to come back and bite you as an adult. And I think I had a high need to be needed. The three human lies are we're not worthy, we're not lovable, and we're not enough. And I really struggled with not being enough. So, how do you handle life if you're not enough? You go on boards of directors, fight that thing that women do, have a fabulous body, work out, run marathons, raise money, be a great mom, bring home the bacon. And I literally was in the bathtub one night and saw a black wisp, my soul, leave my body. And 3 weeks later, I was in the hospital with acute bilateral pulmonary emboli. And, I'd been having chest pains for about 3 weeks, but I had a kid in exams and I didn't feel I could leave and go to the hospital. And I just never made decisions that were right for me. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer in outside help. And I immediately called my coach who said, Libby, you must start making decisions that are right for you. And that was really difficult because I didn't think I had the right to make decisions that were good for me. And after a while, I thought about it and I thought, I love my kids so much. I love my parents. I love my family. I love my business, my employees. If I start making decisions that are right for me, de facto, they will be right for all those other people too. And I will be modeling, particularly for my children, that they don't have to carry on with this intergenerational trauma, particularly that women care, where we are supposed to get lost in everything. So, by making decisions that were right for me, I was able to show my kids that you don't have to grow up and deplete yourself. You have the right to a happy, healthy life. So, what things did I do? I cut back on a number of things that were not hugely important. I started getting, well, I had a naturopath, and I worked with a coach. I got myself off some boards. I got very clear with my money situation. I
So let
said
me
to my,
step back for a
yeah, go
moment.
ahead. Sorry.
Money, you talked about money.
Yeah.
Money is was also a part of what you needed to change in your life. How did you do that?
Well, I used to wake up in the middle of the night since I was paying for my kids and write down what I was worth and what I owed. And you have this concern about will it be enough and will I be okay? The first step I took, and I believe everybody needs to take, is to actually get very clear with your numbers. Understand what you have coming in, what is going out, what are hard costs, and what are variable costs. So I really turned what I do on others onto myself. And I did a deep dive into my own plan to make sure that not only was I okay presently, but that I'd be okay in the future.
Okay, Libby. So when we come back, we're going to talk about being an extrovert and finding your strength. So please don't go away. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. On today's episode, we're discussing that wealth is a symbiotic circle of life perspectives. So, Libby, you and I were talking earlier, and you were saying that most people who know you feel that you're an extrovert, and yet you find your strength, purpose, and energy when you're alone and deep in thought in nature. And you believe the real work that we all need to do as humans is in the privacy of our own hearts. Can you explain how you cope?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we're taught in business to be able to speak and come across as high energy. And yet, really, the work to be done is the privacy of our own heart. And that comes from Ram Dass, because we all think that the outer part of our lives are the most important, but in fact it's not. It's who we are as a spirit. And the studies shown through Stanford will state that 71% of our brain is in a higher creativity mode when we are walking. So I have spots that I go to where I force myself to not listen to a podcast, to not make a phone call, but to start walking. In the first 10 minutes, my brain is busy, busy, busy. And then it finally slows down. And somewhere between anxiety and boredom, creativity will show itself. And I know that that is so important for us to come up with what we know is inside of us. We all know the answers.
It's really interesting that you said that. You like to go for walks and, you don't have the earbuds in or anything. I do the same thing. I like to be aware of my surroundings. I want to hear the birds chirping. I want to, hear uh, the rain falling. Like I want to hear everything when I'm walking around. And I think it's really important. Yet every time I look around, if I'm on the subway or watching people walk, the earbuds are in or people are glued to their phones with their head down and not paying attention to anything around them. And I think that's more harmful than anything else.
You see people walking their dogs with earbuds in, and you can tell the dog knows its master doesn't mind.
Yeah.
The archetype, Elizabeth, of who is going to be powerful in our world is changing. It used to be those that had the most money that is going to be the most powerful. And now it is going to be those people who have strong moral standards, people who have values and who are bringing those out in what they do every single day. And if you don't take the time to get clear on what you stand for without the noise of somebody else telling you what that is, I don't know how you're ever going to really find your true self. And that is what our world needs.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So let's step back. You have an English degree and you believe that it's invaluable when it comes to helping people with their money, yet everybody is so focused on finance. Explain, please.
Well, first of all, I have surrounding me people who are incredibly smart at finance. I love characters. I love the story. I love the drama. Every single person on this earth, Elizabeth, and you know it from the people you interview, have incredible stories. And so, by having an English degree, I learned how to appreciate the story inside of everybody, how to tease it out. Because my job with money is to help you find what is your purpose and mission in life. Separate yourself from the money, and once you understand that, let's reintroduce the money as a tool to help you then build your best life. But it is unique to everybody. It cannot be one solution fits all, one question asks all. So we ask questions until often the person will cry or laugh or be, wow, because the question has to resonate with the person that I'm speaking to.
So in the introduction, I referred to you as the it girl.
Mm.
We have a minute before we go to commercial break. What does that mean?
So 80% of elderly care duties fall to the daughter. I mean, I think that might be improving. But the it girl means that people in my family, particularly my parents, will come to me to make the decision, or they will come to me to bounce ideas off of, or they will come to me when something's not working, or somebody will come to me when they need a loan, or somebody will come to me, and again, I think I probably asked for that because of this high need to be needed. And I've now had to set up boundaries about that. So once again, I don't get depleted.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are in that position right now. But when we come back, we're going to delve even more into this. So please don't go away. We'll be right back with more of Libby Wildman. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. On today's episode, we're discussing that wealth is a symbiotic circle of life perspectives. Now, Libby, I want to go back. Your grandmother had to find a job and go work for the first time at the age of 40, which is a little late. And this was after her son was killed and your grandfather was let go from his job. Now, you shared with me a story about your father, how he saw your grandfather throw himself on the bed and cry. And it began an intergenerational fear of going broke.
Absolutely. And, my father's recently widowed, and I had lunch with him yesterday to do his finances. And even though his net worth is quite high, he still carries around that whole problem of being broke
Mhm.
because his father said when he threw himself on the bed, "What will I do now?" And my grandmother had been a stay at home mom. So in my father, it made him have this fear, but then that also turned him into an amazing saver. And when I grew up with that, and my parents got divorced when I was a middle tween, and I watched my mother be dependent on a man financially. And after the divorce, pre the family law act, she had to go and get a job. So I remember making this statement to myself at age 26 that I will never be dependent upon a man for money. And I will become a very good saver because of this fear. And I'm hopeful I haven't passed that on to my children. I try to be open and honest about money. But it's a real issue that parents teach the next generation what to be afraid of, thinking they're helping them instead of instilling the fear yet again.
Yeah, I think it's really important. My parents were immigrants. They came to Canada with a suitcase and $125. So I was
Wow.
taught to save every penny. And I think there's a generation that was taught to save a lot. And then you've got another generation that taps. And as children, they see the parents tapping, but don't understand anything about money or where the money comes from or how much you have to make in order to be able to pay for the tapping. Um,
Yeah, there's no tactile nature to money anymore. And I think that's been a real loss that we don't have to, your parents and my parents talked about pushing a nickel over the counter at the bank and then them giving a bank book that told them how much they had.
yeah,
So there's a real issue. And as much as there's an issue with people saving, there are issues with people who are too afraid to spend.
yeah.
And there is stigma around having too much money today, and there's stigma around not having enough. So, money is something I really encourage people to talk about in their families about what does it represent to you, and that it is a tool. It's not a live human being.
Yes. So, okay, so let's talk about wealth then. Society would have us believe that economic wealth is the only wealth that matters. Now, this judgment and pressure causes many people to act irrationally. We just talked about that. Take unnecessary risks with their money, do illegal things for money, and then take on unmanageable debt. Tell us your personal story.
Yeah, I mean, through friends and some of my own experiences, we've had the spouse do things with money that we were completely unaware of until it was too late, and things that put me into much greater debt.
Mhm.
And when I found out about it, not only was I in shock about the amount of money, because when you're married, you both owe that money back,
Yeah.
but it was the violation of the trust that we had as spouses and a family that was so frightening, and what else that person might be doing. And so we call this financial infidelity. And it goes far deeper than just money being spent or money being invested in something without the other person knowing. It is that lack of transparency and trust. And that I am seeing more and more of because society says it's so important to be worth a lot of money. Many people with a big money bucket lack in personal health, family relationships. And so that's when I talk about the symbiotic circle of perspectives, in that we need as humans spiritual health, physical health, access to good health care. We need challenge health. Like Elizabeth, you have goals that you want to do, and
Yep.
every human being does.
So when we come back, we're going to delve a little bit further into this because I think you've touched upon a lot of really interesting points, especially with the financial infidelity as well. So please don't go away. We will be right back with more. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today I'm joined by Libby Wildman, who's head of wealth advisory at Davis Ray. Libby's here to tell us that wealth is a symbiotic circle of life perspectives. So, Libby, we just got back from commercial break. You and I have been talking. I want to talk about one of your favorite financial planning strategies, and it's called the family bank. Your grandfather started this with your dad. Tell us about the family bank and whether you still continue with this strategy.
Yeah, I love it, Elizabeth. And you can do it whether you have $50 a month to set aside or 50,000 a month. But essentially, it's a concept that each generation is insured so that there is always a financial legacy that is being left to the next generation. So when my dad's older brother Chuck was killed at Western in an accident, my grandfather went out and bought a $5,000 life insurance policy on my dad. Now, this was 1940. So that was a lot of money. And then my dad actually bought a $25,000 policy on himself. And when we were born, my dad bought a policy on each of us kids. And then when my kids were born, I bought a life insurance policy on each of my kids. And so with these types of life insurance policies, there's living values, cash values, and there's a death benefit. The parent or the grandparent can own the policy and control all the values until such time they believe their child is old enough and responsible enough to take over a financial tool. And so, what's really cool about it is I gave my daughter, who's 28, her policy a few weeks ago, and she was astounded at the values because it had been compounding for 28 years.
Yeah.
So, the point is that if there is always some sort of money that will be left to the next generation, it gives that generation a little bit of a leg up, and they understand that planning for the next generation, planning for their future is an important financial structure. So, my kids, I know, are going to do this with their kids if they choose to have them. But it's really simple because children don't have to have medicals. And you can, as I say, we used to do this with the baby bonus, Elizabeth. People take the baby bonus and they would buy these small policies on their kids. I
Mhm.
mean, I did $2,500 a year for my kids, 28 years ago. But it's a really simple, lovely thing. And children keep it when they become adults because your name is on it as the parent,
Yeah.
and because it has structure, and they can
Nice.
use it as a line of credit during their lifetime, and when you pass it on to them, they can make their spouse or their friend the beneficiary, whatever they choose to do with it.
That's great. It's wonderful to hear about paying it forward. Now I want to go backwards. I want you to tell us your story about growing up because you had a job and you had to raise 50% of the cost of whatever it is that you wanted to purchase. I want to talk about the lessons that you learned from working and how long it took you to make enough to buy whatever it was.
Yeah, my dad was just a big believer in discipline, accountability, and how do you teach kids the value of a dollar. So if we cut the lawn, we got a dollar. Quite frankly, we would go and collect beer bottles, and my dad would take them back to the beer store and give us the nickels. And he would say to us, if you want a bicycle, you have to pay half. Well, if you turned around and said, well, I don't want it that bad, there's a lesson right then and there. I'm not going to put my own money towards it, so I don't want it. But the interesting thing was my dad had a really good friend who used to say to him, Robbie, why do you make your kids work? They make a couple $100. Who cares? And my father said, it's not about the money, it's about the empowerment, the self respect. Me figuring out it might take me 6 months to save up to get a bike. So, do I really, really want it?
So
So, I think it's important. Yep.
it's very important. We've got 10 seconds left. Tell us about the collective.
The collective is a place to come and be in community where you belong and you can get educated, talk about money, talk about your dreams, and have other people weigh in and help you make them come true.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Libby. This has been a wonderful 20 minutes to hear about you and the lessons learned. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
In closing, I'd like to use Libby's words of wisdom. She says, if you believe you have a gift, if you believe you have a purpose, if you believe that you're worthy, lovable, and enough, the hold you perceive money has over you lessens. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Bye for now.